So last week we talked about Mary's journey and how we are Mary, pregnant with possibility, and that what it is that we are birthing in our lives in this year of I Am coming up is bigger than what we can imagine. That whatever it is we have in mind, Spirit always has more at hand for us. That there's more of a gift, there's more meaning than you ever thought possible. There's more to manifest than you ever thought possible. You'll find more within yourself than you ever thought possible. So I went back to the Metaphysical Bible Dictionary, which was compiled by Charles Fillmore, one of our founders. And I looked up what he said about Mary and about Joseph. So he says, Mary, the mother of Jesus, represents the soul that magnifies the Lord daily in the temple, and through its devotions prepares itself for the higher life. She signifies the divine motherhood of love. She can also be said to be intuition. Jesus, the perfected man manifestation, is conceived in the intuitive or soul nature and is molded in its substance. This coming of the Christ body into activity is the result of an exalted idea sown in the mind and matured by the soul, which is Mary. The soul is devout and expectant. It believes in the so-called miraculous as a possibility. Mary expected the birth of the Messiah according to the promise of the Holy Spirit. She was overshadowed by that high idea. It formed in her mind, and the seed that quickened into the cell, and in due season there were aggregations of cells strong enough in their activity to attract the attention of the outer consciousness, and what is called the birth of Christ took place. So this section, in due season, there were aggregations of cells strong enough in their activity to attract the attention of the outer consciousness, stood out to me. So as we're working on this year of I Am, and the word you're choosing to start manifesting a higher, quote unquote, higher level of consciousness in something, takes a strong activity of mind. It's not just something to think about. It's something to weave into your daily life, something to meditate on, something to work on, to practice, to discipline yourself in. And that's the only way it comes into outer consciousness, into manifestation, so that you can see it real in your life and in your existence. Myrtle Fillmore, in her Healing Letters book, talks about a vigorous activity of mind. She was relentless in keeping her consciousness raised around vibrant health until she cured herself of tuberculosis. For 3 years, and we've talked about that before. So she meditated on vibrant health as often as she could. She stayed with it even when she was still not well. And that's what we're called to do. To keep the consciousness high even when we're manifesting something different and holding on to it until it's there. So when Charles Fillmore talks about Joseph, he said Joseph was merely betrothed to Mary, betrothed meaning engaged. Yet she was great with child, so Joseph was minded to put her away privily, so in private. This means that we do not, in the first states of the birth of Christ in us, understand the process and sometimes are moved to put it away. The soul is heavily charged with divine life, and so full that it cannot express itself intelligently because no union has yet taken place between it and the understanding. and Joseph represents understanding. So we talked last week about that gap, that time when we're still doubting about whether or not we can actually manifest what it is we want to call into rebirth. There are going to be times that even though I want to step into a higher consciousness of inspiration, that's my word that I chose, that I'm going to doubt that I'm there, that I am going to fall short, what I call for falling short of this picture, this visualization of what inspiration is for me in 2019. So all that means is that you are in the process. It doesn't mean it's not working. It just means you're making progress. And there will be days when you are at different levels of manifesting whatever it is you're calling into your life. So it's not bad, it's progress. It's not bad, it's not falling short. And there will be days you will understand what you're birthing at a different level. There'll be some days that I understand inspiration one way, and the next day it'll mean something different to me because I may have a greater understanding. And I have to walk that path through letting my intelligence meet up with spirit and have something miraculous come into life. So the mind and the heart have to meet for greater wisdom. So none of this happens intellectually. It'll start there, and you'll be thinking about it, and you'll be trying to work it out, and you'll have some plans for what that looks like. But there will be times along the way when when you think, well, this doesn't look so good. Or this isn't what I planned. Or I'm falling far short of the mark I set. So you're looking right now at the poster child of kicking herself.
I don't think so.
You don't think so?
You're looking at her.
You two are there. Okay, and so one of my journeys has been learning how to stop kicking myself and realizing that I am in progress, I am in process of meeting my goal, that I'm still working towards it, that there's something else for my heart and my mind and my spirit to embrace, and that I have to let go of the intellectual and seep into what spirit is calling me to in this miraculous possibility that Charles Fillmore mentioned. That we go from the intelligent to the spiritual, and when they come together, we get the miraculous. That's when things start happening in your life that you say, oh my gosh, I didn't know that could happen. I didn't know that was for me. I didn't know I was capable of that. I didn't know I could be loved like that. I didn't know I could be that healthy. I didn't know that I could stand in my truth so strongly and be at peace with it. I didn't know that I could have this level of awareness about my life and have this kind of clarity. And it almost, to me sometimes, that brings me to my knees, literally. And I think, oh my gosh, how wonderful life is. That's when you fall into the miraculous. And it no longer is a mind thing. It's no longer something that you made happen. It's something that comes through you and takes a hold of your heart. And you're right in the middle of it, and you'll have a visceral experience of that. I have it all the time. And I get these goosebumps all over, and I think, oh my gosh. How did Spirit know that this was for me? I didn't know life could be like this. That's the miraculous. And when we stay in tune, when we let our intelligence kind of open up and we let go of having to figure it all out, and we let the miraculous happen, and we let the possibilities stay open, we give room for miracles. Miracles should not be rare. They should happen every single day. That should be our norm. That is our norm, but often we don't see them. We don't acknowledge them. We discount them. And like Charles said, sometimes we back away from it and say, oh, can't be for me. I'm not the one. So what do we do with that doubt? I think you acknowledge that you have it and say it's okay. When you haven't fallen short, remind yourself that you're on the journey. It's progress. It's okay to say, I'm not used to miracles in this area of my life. A friend of mine, very good friend of mine, always says, up until now. Up until now, I have not been used to miracles. Up until now, I could not embrace this in my life. Today is a different day. Up until now, I didn't know love could be like this. Today, I'm ready to welcome it with open arms. And just like Marilyn had us repeat that affirmation 3 times, you may have to say that over and over and over again until you feel it in your bones. There are going to be days when I'm not feeling inspiring. And I will remind myself that up until now, I was at a different level of inspiration in my life. And today is a new day. And now I'm stepping into something else. I was at Disney World this week, and one of the things that really turned me on, I'm into Star Wars movies and stuff like that. I love action heroes. So they had the stormtroopers marching up the lane. And one of the stormtroopers kept saying, because there were people lined up all along, one of the stormtroopers kept saying, step aside. And for some reason, I really grabbed onto that step aside, and I thought, that's what I need to tell my fears and my doubt when it rushes up. Step aside. It's a new day. And one of the other stormtroopers would say, advance. Right? I think that's what we do with our doubt and our fear. It may not go away. There are a lot of things I'm still afraid of. But I go anyway, and it's okay to say, step aside, I've got this. The divinity in me has got this. Advance. And you move forward. Man, the stormtroopers were just marching, and the music was going, and I was like, oh my gosh. Yes. I even found it on YouTube and downloaded it. We were playing it on the TV, and I'm in my living room going, step aside. Advance. You would have thought I had the big gun and the outfit on and everything. I was feeling it.
Got this.
Yeah. And I warned my husband, he might be hearing that song a lot. He might be hearing that march. But you know what? That's what I got to do. And he probably liked hearing it too. Right? Step aside. Because up until now, I was at a different level of manifestation. I'm ready to advance, going forward, and go. Just march. heading straight to the miraculous. There's no reason not to go unless you choose not to. And again, it's okay. There are days when I don't feel like being inspiring. There are days when I don't want to be a leader. And that's okay. And there are other days when I don't want to be it, but it shows up anyway. And darn it, if not on vacation, it showed up a couple of times. And finally I said, it must be in my blood. This must be my thing. Thank you, Karen.
I affirm you.
And so I just stepped into it and I said, okay. It was interesting. It wasn't hard. It was just me. And I thought, all right, this is what this looks like here. A different level of manifestation. A different way of showing up as a leader that was not work for me. And it just felt natural. I thought, oh, I need to let that go for a couple of days so I can relax. Interesting that I could relax into it now. Because up until now, I did not always. It is becoming second nature. That was a huge aha for me. A huge aha. And that's when you know it's working. When all of a sudden, you're in there, and you say, oh my gosh. Look at that. And all of a sudden, standing in your truth is easy and second nature. And you're not doubting yourself. You're not questioning yourself. You're not giddy about it and saying, oh my gosh, look what's happening. It's just like, all right, that's me. Whatever you've called into expression, all of a sudden will start showing up and you'll say, I got this. I'm the stormtrooper. Yeah. And you'll just have a knowingness, a peaceful knowingness that it's happened. And it will continue to happen. And you will continue to have different levels of manifestation. I won't call them greater because nothing's better or less than the other. But it's just a different level of manifestation. You're stepping, you're blooming more. So that tight bud of a flower that we talked about, the rose, is just opening up into full flower. The rose isn't different. It doesn't become something different. It just opens up. And the petals become free and looser. It's just the same rose at a different stage. And all of it is beautiful. And I think all of us can say that a rosebud is just as beautiful as the rose in full flower. It's just different, right? It's just different. So we can let doubt and fear know along this process of rebirth as we're stepping into manifestation of something new. I don't think it's new. I think it's within you. It's just time for it to give birth. You can say, I'm the boss here. I see you. Step aside. I'm advancing. I'm moving forward. And use what tools you have. I'll be watching Stormtrooper marches for a while. I found some songs that I like listening to. I just heard probably for the 100th time in spin class, the song Roar by Katy Perry. But it means something different to me now because I'm in this rebirth process. So I listened to that song 4 times this morning. You're going to hear me roar because I am a champion. Up until now, I didn't talk to myself like that every morning. Now it's different. So grab onto whatever turns you on about this journey and use it. Remember we talked about spirit shows up in all kinds of ways. The messages come from everywhere. It might be the movie you're watching, a song you're listening to, people in your life, whether you know them or not. Could be a stranger says something to you, notices something in you, and then you say, okay, that's about the 4th time I've heard that this week. Something in a magazine, a billboard, all of a sudden something will jump out at you that you did not catch before. It's your soul calling you out and saying, pay attention. You're being called. Listen for those things, grab onto them, use them. And if, like Joseph, you have to do it in private, then do that. My husband knows I'm crazy, so I can be a stormtrooper in the living room. Right? He's used to watching me along the journey. But if you can't do that, do it where you can. You've got to do it in the car, where nobody's listening but you. Do it in the car. Do what you need to do. The journey is yours. And there's a miracle waiting to be birthed in you. And you should be feeling that anticipation now. Making room for it in your life, in your soul, in your mind. So that you're ready to advance.